Evening, good morning, good afternoon, global population, some fish are here. Right, first of all, if you've not watched my side notes episode of Epics Wars and Maybe Alien Tech, I advise going and watching that first before you watch this, because it's the stuff in that are integral to what's coming next. Because now we're going to talk about a little area in Russia. I'll say a little, about 3,000 odd miles. Anyway, let's go. So yeah, most of you sat there now probably going, what, 3,000 odd miles? Eh? Is that... You having a laugh? Oh, no, deadly serious. Stretching from the Kola Peninsula near the North Pole down to a place called Votavara, a mountain called Votavara, which used to be part of Finland, or in an area of Finland, and is now Russia since World War II. Right across to the very edge of the Ural mountain range, to a place called Manpupune, and straight up to that pyramid in the Urals that I showed you last time. That whole area, that rectangle, perfect rectangle, as you can see in the background now, is the borders of the Hypoboreans, I think. They could stretch out further than that, to be honest, because I found other sites all over the place as well, which may be linked. At the moment, not entirely sure. But these places I know for sure. In the Kola Peninsula, there are two pyramids, step pyramids, in the middle of nowhere. Well, I say middle of nowhere because not far away from that is it's a former Russian military base, naval base. Was. It's no longer that. It was basically decommissioned at the end of the Soviet era. But it's still heavily guarded, yeah, by Russian forces. Many people consider it to be the Russian equivalent of Skunk Works or Area 51. Which could well be. There's a few areas in Russia that could be that, though. It's the only thing. In the middle of that rectangle that I just showed you, there was found this. Ooh, right? That wooden idol is about 12 foot tall, and that's not the whole thing. I think they only found 2/3, maybe half of it. So the thing was huge. And it's between 10 and 12,000 years old at least. Yes, it's made of wood. Those lines and everything that you see all over it are, from what can be gathered, a form of writing. But the archaeologists that have The archaeologists have, sorry, I'm just flipping you around there. The archaeologists that found that thing aren't entirely sure. It's just very uniform. Looks like it holds syntax, sentences, grammar. So they believe it very well likely is some kind of writing, but what it says, we don't know. It is also the first ever depiction of evil. The first evil, they know that much. Not just because of the general feeling that they get off the thing, which is horrible, but with what was found around it, sacrifices, human sacrifices, animal sacrifices, you name it, it was sacrificed. And this is one of the first indications, if you come, pardon me, if you're coming out this cold, that something wasn't quite right in that area. Why were they making effigies to depict evil, the first evil? What the hell was going on? Well, if you've watched my side notes episode, you're probably at the moment having your cogs go into overdrive, your brain cogs, because of all the stuff that I said in the last episode. You see, what led me to the conclusions that I made in that video was years and years of coming to that conclusion and vehemently resisting it constantly, because it just sounded bonkers, absolutely batshit crazy. So I can understand if some of you are a bit sort of a bit cagey about the whole thing. I was too for a long while, but I kept getting drawn back to it and drawn back to it and drawn back to it, and then the last time, right? Oop. The last time I found myself drawn back, and for good this time, I tipped over that precipice and was falling down that rabbit hole, definitely were. It was when I was rereading the Fomorian folklore. The Fomorians are a race of god giants from Ireland that I'd never noticed before, but they were described as mad gods, gone insane, as punishment for what they were up to. Ooh. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, hey, well, that certainly fits in with a few things that I've been looking at. And then the Northman tales, they were thought to have been civilised at one point, very civilised, and then all of a sudden gone insane. Sea peoples, same. They were quite normal at first, apparently, but when they attacked the Egyptians, they were vicious and evil, just like the Northmen. And then I began to find more and more and more and more tales of gods gone mad, attacking their own creations, us, for no good reason apparently. So, in that area of Russia, northeastern Russia, you have the first depiction of the first evil, which, in fairness, may have been, like I said, Ahriman. First depiction of him after they encountered him sometime after, worshipped him. See, this is the other thing that brings the mad gods idea to the fore, and that's they worshipped this first evil, whatever it was. Okay, like I said, I believe that it was Ahriman. Our first encounter with him, the full-fledged Ahriman, no, not what he was at that time, which was essentially just demonic magic, both at the same time, both existing on the same plane. Like I said, Ahriman had to create himself. He had to use us to do it. And as long as we kept allowing it, we would continue to go through this cycle over and over and over again. And it's one step closer, 2 steps back, constantly. But he's the same. He's in the same boat. Don't get me wrong. This is why you get so many folk tales, so many mythologies, so many legends about the gods of various cultures, all turning around and saying we go through cycles and we have to keep repeating and repeating and repeating. The Indian Vedas are a prime example. As our reality spans over one Brahmic day, which is just over 4 billion years. Coming to the end of it, seeing he's about to awaken again. Which means Shiva's got to destroy everything. Now Shiva could well be, because it's the destroyer of worlds, could well be a version of Ahriman, just possessing a woman. See, the whole Anunnaki thing, people keep going on about them coming out of Africa and everything else. Well, the thing is, the fossil record and our DNA doesn't fit that narrative at all. In fact, we didn't even come out of Africa. That never happened. And like I said last time, well, not in the side notes episode, but in the last episode, and in one of me political rants videos about complaining is this.
Additional research covering high coverage whole genome sequences of 15 sub-Saharan African hunter-gatherer males shows signs that the ancestors of the hunter-gatherers interbred with one or more archaic human populations probably around 40,000 years ago, suggesting that the archaic African population and modern humans diverged around 1.2 to 1.3 million years ago. In addition, protein in the saliva of certain African populations, such as the Yoruba tribe, shows evidence that a species of archaic humans contributed DNA into their gene pool, pointing to an extinct group of archaic humans which appear to have contributed DNA into the gene pool of modern populations in West Africa. In other words, sub-Saharan Africans could not possibly have populated or turned into Europeans. They did not leave Africa and magically mutate 35,000 years ago, as they carry archaic DNA not found in the genome of Cro-Magnons. In fact, the evidence suggests things happened the other way around, where Cro-Magnon, fully modern, carrying some Neanderthal admixture, entered into Africa, mated with archaic species, which, as I said earlier, are 1.2 to 1.3 million years diverged from modern humans, crossbred with archaic hominids such as Homo erectus, which is now considered extinct, but who live on in the hybridized genetics of modern sub-Saharan Africans who have a greater cranial capacity today than Homo erectus had, thanks to this.
Black people and white people are as different to each other as breeds of cat, yeah, or species of big cat, yeah, or bonobos and chimps. Even sub-Saharan Africans and West Africans are completely separate as well. We know that those African nations never left Africa because their DNA doesn't appear in anyone else's. Likewise, the West Africans don't appear in anyone else's. The Dogon don't appear. Dogon tribe, yeah, don't appear in anyone else's. Chinese don't appear in anyone else's. It's only when we get to the Vedic cultures that we start to see the origins of the Oriental region. So likely sprang up in India, across the stands, and also in another little area, which is like a Hypoborean sort of outpost, pointing out across the sea. An observation post as well, called Caucasia. Now this place is glorious, absolutely beautiful. As you can see by these pics. See that? Where those posts are evenly spaced, uniform, yeah. That's to track both the movement of the sun, the movement of the moon, and the movement of the stars. All you flat earthers, Neolithic man debunked flat earth nearly 30,000 years ago. They knew it was a ball. Idiots. Anyway, so it was like from this point that they moved across to the Americas and went across there, and they became another separate subspecies, if you will. The one thing that's very clear with these guys is their use of geometric patterns, and across vast different distances. I've talked about in Crimea there's the pyramidal complex, how it's a rhombus, yeah, and on each point of the each of the four corners of the rhombus, yeah, is another rhombus, yeah, of pyramids, with one in the middle, and then there's that larger rhombus that they make up on each corner, and then there's one massive one in the middle, pyramid. This area of Russia, yeah, we'll call it Hypoboria 1, right? Because I believe there may be more. But we'll call it Hypoboria 1. This area is no different, right? In each of the four corners, you have those four sites that are perfectly aligned, right? They even take in, right, and account for the curvature of the earth going around, as you can see from that pic. Amazing stuff. So they have them perfectly aligned. Yeah? That curved line goes around the globe. Right? Flat earthers. Again, they debunk you. Yeah? They knew about the curvature of the earth. Just look at the swing. Right? Gets better. Gets better. Each of those sites is on a nodal point. Yeah? An energy point. Right? And they encompass loads of little sites all over the place around there. One of them is where that idol was found. Yeah. Now, obviously, quite a lot of it's gone down, and I think that's mainly due to glaciation and just glaciers destroying it. Yeah, destroying the sites, a lot of the sites. But these things managed to survive, especially the dolmen. If you look at Votivora, oh my god, that is just a field, just a massive dolmen field of just stone structures everywhere, all over the place on this flat plain in front of the mountain. Like I said, you go directly up, straight up, and you find the Kola pyramids, those step pyramids. They're there, yeah. I believe there's two more, right? Just a little bit further up from those two, but they've been heavily eroded. And they make a rectangle, shockingly, yeah. Same with the Ural Mountains, right? You swing right across to the Ural Mountains and you find that pyramid, yeah, Ural Pyramid, which I mistakenly said was a Kola pyramid. It's not the Kola pyramid, it's the Ural pyramid. So sorry about that, apologies, got that wrong. I was mistaken. It's not that I got it wrong, it's just that I get those areas mixed up. It's easy to do. It's Russia. I've not been there much. Anyway, that, so far as I can tell, right, that's the only one. There's possible ones near it, but that is just so clearly defined, so obvious in the straight lines, the alignment to the cardinal points, yeah, everything just screams artificial. Oh. Now, when you go directly down from there, from the Ural Pyramid, and right across from Votivora, when they meet up, you get Mampupunur. Now this place is incredible. What you're seeing there is what's known as all sorts of different names, but one of them is Seven Brothers, Seven Wizards, yeah, seven petrified giants, all sorts of names, right? That are basically depicting them as living beings, or once being living beings, that were turned to stone by some magical force, something that made them that way. And that's been the folklore around that area, yeah, for a good few millennia. Probably about as long as those things would be standing there. That is another place where, not very far away, is dun, 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 Military base. Why would you have another military base around there, See, this is what makes it all very dodgy. Because where you find these sites, to ensure that no one goes there, you find military bases all over. It's infuriating. Because not only does it mean that you can't actually go there unless you know someone that can go there for you, but it also means that Google Earth will map it out. Map out that area. They'll put a flat texture over the top of it, because their satellites can't go over it. For some reason, even though Google is an American company, it seems to do as the Russians ask, keeping things secret. It's the same with the Kola Peninsula. When you look up there, you look all around that place, you cannot find hardly anything. From a visual standpoint, you can't even get close, right? Which is really weird. In street view, like normally you can get close to things. You can actually, or you can get a view from a bit of a distance. Not those Kola pyramids. Can't get anywhere near them on street view. You have to rely on their photos, which are taken from miles away. It's annoying. Same with that Uru pyramid. It's basically a running theme. Botavara was the same for a good long while. Like the legends about that place are extremely weird. One of the best mini docs on it, right, is by a guy called Wartime Stories. It's basically an ex-military guy that goes into very strange and unusual paranormal like stories, cryptid stories, from other army vets and active as well, active military from around the world. People send him all sorts of stuff. One of them was on Votavara and how the Finns lost it basically to the Russians. Strange things around that place, which brings me again to every time you are following what began as the errata, but also applies to the Dogolandians, right, and also applies to the Hypoboreans, because they're all linked. Hypoboreans are the ancestors of both the Dogolandians and the Erratans, right? That much is becoming very clear. But the paranormal and darkness follows them. Wherever they stayed for a while, it's steeped in darkness. It really is. That's why you get places like Romania, Transylvania and Romania, the Hypoboria forest, all the stories about the Impaler, all the tunnels they found under there. I mean, I'm going to have to do another episode on Romania at some point, but it follows them everywhere. Doggerland, same, The UK, those of you who live in the UK will know what I mean when I say this place is fucking weird, really weird in areas, certain areas. Stonehenge being one, Cannock Chase being another. That stuff's like Skinwalker Ranch. It's got everything. Where I live, right? It's on, again, a nodal point of ley lines, and you wouldn't think of it to look at the place, but it's crazy energetically. It seems to enhance and attract the paranormal worlds. I mean, it's been around since the Iron Ages, this area where I live. It's always been a settlement here, because it's close to a river, water source. and tin mines all over the place. In fact, the mine shafts have been collapsing for God knows how long. I mean, all the houses are subsiding. Yeah. But to house all the workers that they had at the mills when they turned it into a mill town, they basically emptied the cemetery of all the bodies that they could, left all the ones that were unclaimed, and built houses over the top of them. Real life end of poltergeist shit. Yeah. Anyway, getting off topic. But you get what I mean. Yeah. This is why this area has been so interesting to me, because of the, first of all, that idol, that wooden idol. Now when I first read about that years ago, I thought, wow, that's weird. Yeah, and I forgot about it. Until Thumper showed me that Uru Mountains pyramid. Still, I thank you every time, Thumper, but that was an amazing find, bro. It really was. It's led to so goddamn much. But that idol was one of the things that I remembered. So I showed him. I went, look at this. And he said, oh yeah, very nice. And then changed the subject. I was like, oh, look. Well, he didn't get what I was saying. God bless you, Thumper. But sometimes you just don't get it. But then I'm the same with you. Anyway. Sorry, I'm just trying to air things out with my good friend. My second in command at Data Drops on Telegram. Yeah, my Data Drops channel. I'm just shamelessly plugging. From these sites, right? From just looking at these sites, which are thousands and thousands of years old, yeah, tens of thousands. You can just tell, just by the place of the position, what would have been there up until very recently. So they had to be built before there was any ice there, yeah. So we're talking good couple of 100,000 years at least. Especially the pyramids of the Kola Peninsula. So another thing, Kola. Deep. Kola Deep, you heard of that? Borehole? The deepest hole ever drilled. That's in the Kola Peninsula, not far away from those pyramids. It's also where they did the time mirror experiments, if you don't know what they are. That's a trip. That's a real rabbit hole, it really is. Because those scientists up in, those Russian scientists, by the way, really stumbled onto something big. They really did. I advise reading up on that, reading up on those experiments, because although the majority of what they discovered is classified, how to make them isn't. And they work. It's not time travel per se, but it's a way of remote viewing the past easier by using these mirrors that are literal mirrors. And there's some, whatever they opened there hasn't gone. Basically, it's still open. Just like the wounds that these guys leave every time. Those doorways are forever open after that. It's a bit of a problem. Because there's lots of areas like that. Stonehenge is one. The first time I ever went there was in 91, 92 I think, 1991, 1992. And by that time, you were only allowed to just walk around the outside of it. You weren't allowed inside. But I got an overwhelming feeling that that place was a burial site, a huge burial site. And the next thing you know, there's a body being found under the altar stone in the middle that looks like a royal burial. By the way he was dressed and the stuff that he was left with. Where's that dish gone? Oh, this will do. Oh no. And everything else. They found ashes under the outer stones. Meaning that whoever had their cremations put underneath those stones were very important as well. Lightly tied to that king figure in the middle. King Arthur. Anyway, round table, round structure. Very reminiscent of the of Wenceslas Mine as well, that place. What do you think? Again, tangent. Where was I? So yeah, that whole Kohler area is incredibly active, shall we say. It's an area of the world where if paranormal shit's going to happen, it will and does happen all the time. Same with Sarachina in Bulgaria, that's another area. After what the army did there, the Bulgarian army with the Russians did there, which I touched on all the way back in episode 1. I've already mentioned Romania. Chernobyl is another place. Yeah, there is so many strange sort of instances that happened during that day when Chernobyl went up. There's a tree in the middle of it's Kapachi, yeah, Kapachi. That area that they buried, yeah. Well, there's a tree in the middle of it that was untouched as a cloud of radiation went past, right? No radiation from where that tree is spreading out. There is a massive band of just no radiation whatsoever. Even that tree that supposedly blocked it, no radiation on it. And there's a church that's in the path of it that its bell rings when there's nobody there. Yeah, and that is again in Kapachi. And underneath that whole area is just a vast network of tunnels and chambers all over it, spreading out for at least, what, 500-600 miles, yeah, maybe more. 3 leveled, right? 3 levels. Not 1, 3, right? We know this because of the Lavrov missile platform, yeah? The SAM site, supposedly a SAM site, surface-to-air missile site, that never fired a shot. Well, no, it's all right. It shot 1 plane down, apparently. But that's open to speculation because, well, the surface-to-air missile didn't come from that direction. It was meant to be protecting the Duga-1 woodpecker, yeah, over the horizon radar, and again, never fired a shot. In fact, it's not entirely clear how they would have got missiles to it in the first place because there's no roads to it. And I don't just mean today either. There wasn't back then. How did they get there? Yet they built a bunker. again, off topic, but it's the same. It's the same kind of deal. See, from Crimea upwards, from Crimea to Azovstal, where Tripolia was, yeah, which is vast in and of itself. I mean, it stretches underneath Azovstal, right? But it goes further than that, because it stretches all the way out towards and past the boundary of Mariupol, which is a nearby city. Yeah, again, that's 3 levels. Now everyone says, "Oh, it's Azovstal. It's part of that steelworks." Why is the steelworks in catacombs? Simple enough question. Yeah, explain that to me in an adequate way, as in it's for, I don't know. I can't think of a reason. You see, detractors will turn around and say, well, they're recently built, but even the people at Azovstal will turn around and say, no, they've been there since before we got there. Oh dear. So they're not right then, are they? So if that's the case, how do you get there? And then you realise that it's go out in a circle, perfect circles, going all the way around, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one. Yeah. The Eratans were very, very fond of building in concentric circles of land and water, land and water. Not for defence at first. Energy. It's a fantastic conduit for energy. It's like a network, wire network, yeah? But it uses water. Seeing where things are going, yeah? Right, from Azovstal, or Tripolia, shall we say. You carry on going up, you get to Bakhmut. Another highly contested area, right, by both the Russians and Ukrainians. Makes you wonder why, doesn't it? Yeah? Nowhere else is, just that. In fact, fierce fighting going over there. Whereas beneath that, a salt mine, supposedly. A salt mine that stretches out in all directions, 280 miles, and goes down 10 levels. 10 levels, 280 miles in all directions. It's a fuckload of salt. You can actually go visiting that place though, which is different, yeah, which is not something, well, you could before all this shit kicked off. But even so, a lot of that is blocked off. Yeah. Just next to that is Donetsk, right? Inside of Donetsk there is a coal mine, or there was, before they flooded it. Shut it down and flooded it all of a sudden. Not a real goddamn reason, right? From what people can tell. The only thing that happened before that, was on the 15th floor down, right? These coal miners blew through a wall, found a tunnel. Not only did he find a tunnel though, but in one of the walls, encased in the stone, right? So this sandstone, granite, sorry, had formed around it, right? Was a cogwheel. Cogwheel. It was a gear, to be perfectly. So to be exact, a gear. Yeah. Now, it was only that one found, right? But for it to be encased in that granite, that has to be a good few 100 million years old, supposedly. There's a bit of debate over that. I think a lot of our stone forms a lot quicker. Not too much quicker. A couple of 100,000 years, for sure. See, that's something else that has more weight to my Hypoborian theory. And that's the fact that as white people, that's where we come from. We came from that direction, down towards Georgia, right? And around towards Finland. Now, as for how long they're in each area, at the moment I'm giving a rough guesstimate, right? Because no one knows for sure. Yeah. They could have still been there when Arata was around. They really could have. We know that Arata collapsed around 8,000 years ago when the Black Sea filled. Always filled deliberately, shall we say, by Inanna during the war over the Tablets of Destiny. Shut up, you silly dog. Shut up, it's Marty's. Ash, you stupid dog. Idiot. So we know, like I said, we know it collapsed around then. And from that collapse, after the dust had settled and they finally re-emerged, they ran into the Ubaid. And so began the Sumerian legends and mythologies. After they encountered them now. Whether they fooled the Ubaid into thinking that they were gods, or whether the Ubaid just assumed they were gods from the technology that they had, is a bit up in the air. But these people, and yes, I said people, have been possessed by these dark matter beings, or just one dark matter being controlling them all, from thousands and thousands and thousands of years already. See, why it's always the same, no matter which culture you look at. The same kind of characters, the same kind of character traits, maybe not the same names, but the dialect and language changes. When you'll start looking back to the root words, match up, yeah, that they are the same people. I mean, you could just tell that from the character traits anyway. The way these guys acted, the way they were. And with them as well, it always follows a particular theme. Yeah. their leader is dies in some way, shape or form, either through ritualistic suicide, as in the case of Odin, or is killed by some other means. But they're always killed. And then the gods are upset by this and decide to bring them back. So they make them immortal and deify them. And when he comes back, he's always a teacher to mankind. And two, in possession of an overwhelming amount of knowledge. And I think that these tales are actually talking about the first of them to be possessed, yeah, by Ahriman, or these dark matter entities, yeah. And from those dark matter entities, they gain the knowledge to, and suddenly, to begin building vast complexes, building complexes. Engineering feats that only we can only dream of. I don't know if you've heard of the Gower Peninsula in Wales, right? But that's a prime example. That thing's man-made. It's constructed. Same with St Michael's Mount. It may have been a sea mount, in fact just a mountain before then. But then they built Jack the Giant Killer's grave around that sea mount. And millennia later, a monastery was put there instead. Hide the bloody thing again, yeah. Again, British legends are no different, yeah. The Celtic legends, especially when you go over to Ireland and you get, like I said, the Fomorians that were god giants driven mad, and their leader at that time was a one-eyed guy whose name escapes me right now. I'll put it across the bottom. But he was able to wield lightning at will and cast it on whoever he chooses. Oh, that's how I like to choose. 4. Jupiter. You name any storm god, Yahweh being another. But again, he'd been driven mad after he lost favour with the gods. And it was up to the new inhabitants of Ireland that went over there to rid themselves of them. It took a great deal of effort. Actually, like I said, these guys were fucking giants. So they were big. They were strong. And from all indications, could wield powerful magic. Bit of a problem. Again, you find the same in Norse legends. Like I said, the first first stories of Odin are of him wishing to acquire the universal knowledge from the pool of knowledge at the bottom of the world tree, Yggdrasil. And so he seeks to get the attention of the blind seer that guards that area, the roots, roots of the world tree. So to get his attention, he hangs himself from the world tree. I know it sounds a bit counterproductive because the guy's blind, but he's a seer, obviously. And this does get the seer's attention. Again, this is because it's a mortal man and he needs to bring himself to the edge of death to travel the astral, and that's where this seer is. That's where the roots of the world tree are. It gets better, right? Prometheus is the bringer of light to humanity, light of knowledge, right? It does this in defiance of Zeus. Yeah? He doesn't want us to have any knowledge. He doesn't really like us. Yeah? It was Prometheus that made us. Yeah? So he gives us fire, brings us a flame, and from that flame we get knowledge and everything else, right? All our scientific knowledge and blah 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 blah. We run away with it. To punish him, it's absolutely brilliant, right? To punish Prometheus, Zeus ties him to the top of a mountain, to get his liver picked out until he dies. Picked out by a massive eagle, right? Every day. And his blood drips down that mountain, right? And at the bottom of that mountain is a witch called Medea. And from Prometheus's blood, mixed with the sap of the roots of an ancient oak, the ancient oak trees, mountain oaks, she creates an elixir of immortality, from Prometheus's blood, because he's a titan, obviously. That mountain is in Georgia. More specifically, where that gravity pump is. Crazy, yeah. I know. See how all this is tying together. Now, Prometheus was likely, again, the origin of Odin, the origin of Enlil, Enki, Thoth, Hermes, Lugh, that Fomorian guy. I forgot the name, but you get the general idea. They're all the same person, or same being, right? Now, I said last time that they were granted immortality. I'm not entirely sure whether that's correct or whether this spirit just jumped from person to person to person, right? And was passed down and became that same being. One of the legends about Hermes is called Hermes Thriceborn, because he'll live on the earth for 20,000 years or so and then go and deliberately die to have a rest for a couple of 100 years and then come back in a different body. But he's the same guy. Yeah. You see why that's a bit confusing? It could indicate, like I said, that it's the same sort of spiritual entity just passing itself around rulers or chieftains of particular tribes, particular civilizations. Yeah? But anyway, so with that in mind, this being could accumulate knowledge, the knowledge of our reality, our plane, our world, constantly for thousands and thousands of years. And each person that he takes over has all of that acquired knowledge and adds more to it, which is why we get engineering marvels like the Great Pyramid, or Teotihuacan, or thousands of other sites. Why the Sumerian myths are so batshit crazy, yeah, featuring flying craft, because they very well could have. The longer they live, the more, or the longer it lives and moves around, the more knowledge it gets and the better technology we can get, which is what they were doing. Just like I inferred in the last episode at the end, we had incredible technologies. Eh? We were tampering with genetics, we were flying in craft that even today would be incredible. Very recent, it was only very recently as well, the past couple of months I think, America have announced that they've got an anti-gravity craft, sorry, craft, coincidentally. It's been well known that we can very likely travel outside of a solar system. If people like Ben Rich, who was the former head of Skunkworks in the 90s, I think, or up to the 90s anyway, one of the things he said before he left Skunkworks, his retirement dinner, was, "We now have the technology to take ET home." And he called UFOs unfunded opportunities. Yeah? His book, his life story, is unbelievable. I highly recommend it. Is it true though? Well, it's a matter of opinion. There's some certainly fantastical stuff in there, but again, this guy's very grounded. He's a scientist at the end of the day. Yeah? Aviation engineer. So you can't dismiss everything he says. And there's been countless stories of archaeological finds that were out of this world. Yeah. Again, these were our technology from millennia ago that we've since forgotten how to use. Likely because of some sort of global cataclysm, such as a flood, giant flood, or a comet, or a solar flare. Or, hear me out, a war going on between three factions related to each other that use a kind of orbital beam weapon to essentially cause that flood, destroy the ice cap. Black Knight. Super nice, yeah. With UFOs, what we're experiencing, like I said last time, is a mixture of military black ops craft, reconditioned ancient human craft by the military as well, and plasma beings. the light side of our basis for our religions that seem to have done what any benevolent creator would do and just leave us to it. We have a feeling they're a little bit concerned now. That's why we're seeing more of them. Seems to be coming out more, like I said before, plasma conscious. If you haven't watched that Library of the Untold video that I recommended last time, go and watch it. He did a fantastic job, he really did. A lot of that stuff he said I've forgotten. It was brilliant to get a reminder. It really helped. And a couple of things I didn't even know. One of them being 2 plasma clouds on either side of the Earth. They're highly active all the time. And pointing towards us on either side. Why is that? Well, could it be, right? Just me spitballing here. Just to finish off with before next week we'll go into more detail about everything else. Hopefully you can understand why I wanted to do that other episode last time, because I know I've been flitting about from area to area to area, but in order to understand all this you need to know how it all connects together. For that you need to understand my thinking process, which is chaotic, very chaotic, but it all does link together. It just looks chaotic from the outside. It's organised chaos. Next time we're going to focus in on the Russian area, because there's a couple of other areas there. I've mentioned Khakazia. There's also Pobajin, which is what you're seeing in the background now. It's just an astonishing sight. That island's floating. Yeah, you heard that right, it's floating. No one's sure how, why, but it is, and it's floating in that lake. It's not attached to anything, it's not fixed to the ground, yet it remains stationary. How? No one knows. Where's my drink gone? And there's also what many people have described as Russia's Stonehenge. It is in the middle of nowhere. Also, coincidentally, in the middle of Russia. Now, all you Tartari tides are going to hate the next episode, because I'm going to absolutely dispel that myth by giving you the real history. Anyway, like, share, subscribe, you know the drill. See you later.